If you're visiting today, I want to welcome all of you. This is what we call Vision Sunday. It's a time where we get to provide a ministry update. We do this about once a year. I don't know how many more times we're going to do it in this format. As our church continues to grow, we're going to find more and more creative ways to do that. But we have a growing list of membership that are official, formal members in our church, and so we'll probably start to move this more towards our members' meetings. But until we do that, I just want to make sure that we are connected, intimately connected to the direction of our church as long as we can, as best as we can as a congregation. Now, I'm going to begin with our core values because Metro is unique. I find Metro to be a very unique body of people because we are built around, based and centered around our core values. These 5 values drive everything that we do. We are a gospel-centered community. That is like the umbrella and overarching value that is core to everything that we do at Metro. There is nothing that we do at Metro where we don't sit and actually think about the gospel implications and where we're trying to go and where the gospel is taking us, where God is taking us. So it's very important. You need to understand we have 66 lay leaders, 10 different teams of people, 5 pastors, 1 additional elder, and 1 resident intern, all partnered together for the centrality of the gospel in its advance in us individually as well as us as a body. That is super important because that drives everything else. That makes us a community-dependent people. We've got 11 adult community groups right now. We're about to launch 3 more in June. We've got 2 more in planning towards the end of the year. And we've got 4 fellowships, including a college fellowship that now comprises 20% of our total congregation. They're in the midst of just finishing their finals, right? We've got married couples that comprise 20 to 25% of our total congregation, probably the fastest growing group of people in our community. And then the rest of us, about 50 to 55% of our congregation is comprised of Gen Z and millennials. That's the rest of the church. You are an empowered community here. That makes you the most mobile and transient and serving of people, potentially, because you're not weighed down by a lot of the things that oftentimes weigh down other groups or in their different life stages. You're an empowered community. So where you go as a body is where essentially this church is going to go. We can sit here and set vision, but where you go is going to be where ultimately God takes this church. God is telling us, hey, this is the direction that we're going as a body. But if you're not going there, well, there's going to be a division. That's going to be the first real division in our church. That will be unhealthy. We've always, over the last 11 years, moved in the same direction together. And so this is every bit as much of a guide. It's more than just a guiding philosophy. This is the core of who we are and our identity. We need to understand that. We have a love for the city. That means no matter where you live, if you're coming from the suburbs, if you're coming from Cherry Hill, wherever you are, the life of the area of metropolitan Philadelphia, I mean, it casts a huge orbit and shadow around from the city, from Center City and outward. And so where the city goes is where its people go, essentially. And so we need to continue to pray for the prosperity of the city. That's Jeremiah chapter 29. That's God telling their people, no matter where you are, pray for the city and its prosperity. Work for the city and its prosperity. Because if the city prospers, you will prosper and the gospel will advance. You see, so we embrace the city, movement focused. I mean, we are incredibly creativity driven because of our influx of Gen Z and millennials, and as well as just the creative just culture of Philadelphia. We want to harness that, and so everything we do, we want to bring a creative element. We want to rethink things, rethink how we do things, and yet remain theologically grounded and orthodox in our faithfulness. And we're movement focused. We're all about church planting. We want to plant many, many churches throughout the city of Philadelphia. Now, I want to tell you that the rest of this presentation is going to go even faster than what I just said. But one of the words that I want you to walk away with and remembering is the word change. There's never going to be a point in time ever when you as a person, as an individual, is not changing. We are all shifting. We're shifting in theology. We're shifting in beliefs. We're shifting in our faithfulness and our service. And all that's going to come together, how the Lord is working in you. Very, very important. Very, very powerful. Right? But oftentimes the people, as our thought processes are changing, we oftentimes don't want to change our context You see? And change is a constant here at Metro. We are constantly launching churches, constantly building and releasing people, our best people, because we believe it's about the kingdom of God, not just about our own little enclave here. You know, gosh, if I wanted to be comfortable, I would just continue to keep growing, get a bit nicer building, and keep growing, get a nicer building, and keep growing. I would love to do that, but that is not what we're called to be. That is not what we're called to do. We're just going to continue to grow outward. And that's why we do, and we do that by planting churches. That's movement. And so change is the operative word, and we're going to consistently, there's never going to be a time when we're resting on our laurels, never going to be a time when we say we've arrived as a church. We will constantly be moving and working in light of God's call and his commission to us. And we want to be sensitive to that. So continue to pray for that. Now, let's take a look at what the Lord has been doing in multiplying Metro over the course of the past year. When we talk about movement, when we talk about all these values and how it plays out, the first thing we look at is multiplying. How important should growth be in the church? Why is growth important at all? A lot of us, why do we care about numbers at all? You need to know that from the beginning of Genesis in chapter 1 to the end of Matthew, as Jesus utters the Great Commission, growth, multiplying, represents the gospel of the kingdom advancing throughout all the earth. He says, I want you to go and make disciples of all nations. What is he saying? It's actually almost a reiteration of God's original ordinance to us to be fruitful and increase in number. And so it is an ordinance, it is a commission, it is a call. Mission is a part of God's call to advance the gospel. So numbers and growth, it's not everything. But I don't want to say it's nothing. It's not just something that happens. It's significant. It's important. And with that, because that's what God does. So I'm going to share with you a little bit about growth. Metro began in my loft at my house in 2009. We gathered about 17 people, and we continued to grow together. In 2010, we became 24 people, gathering in the upper loft of my house, just praying about what God is doing and where he's taking us. In 2012, we launched, and by the end of 2012, we grew to about 55 people. And that started to really just take off over time. Very slow in the beginning, but it started to take off over time. And by the time we got to 2020, of course, in 2020, the pandemic hit. We had about 157 people at the end of 2020, and those are loose numbers. We're not sure. It could be plus or minus. More likely, we're undercounting. In 2020, for about 3 weeks, we were just absolutely disoriented. What does it mean to pastor people in this context? And we were reading Martin Luther and what he was dealing with in the Great Plagues. We were reading Francis Grimke and what they were doing in America during the Spanish flu. And we're trying to gather morsels of these prominent Presbyterians who really, Martin Luther wasn't a Presbyterian, he was one of the great theologians of the Reformed era. I mean, these people and what they were doing and what they were teaching and how they were going about their ministries. And we gathered some guidance there, but it felt like everything was coming to a halt. And it was hard for me as a pastor to sit there and say, well, you brought us this far. It can't just end here. What is this about? What are we doing? I got to tell you that the God who led us here into 2020 carried us all the way through and beyond. Because what started out to be a global catastrophe, it was a disaster. And a lot of disrupted lives. We've been there. We know how difficult it's been. And there are people still spinning out of that darkness right now. But it's led to a series of pivotal decision points for our team. That taught us a lot about the way God works. Obviously, you see what he does and the pattern of how he works through his word. And we see that happening around us. The Lord was doing something very special here. We saw that from launch in through 2020. That became one of the most creative and innovative periods of my life, personally. Despite all the difficulties of pastoring and just watching some sad moments, sitting beside people through some sad moments as we saw them work through things. By 2021, we grew to 220. In the second half of 2022, we grew to 281. That was the average in the second half of 2022. And by the second half, we're right now in Q2 of 2023, we are now averaging 338 people in attendance every week at Metro. Our total congregation right now, is 425. That means 425 people consider Metro their home church, their church. It's a pretty amazing thing what God is doing. Just to kind of give you an understanding of what growth looks like, healthy churches, statistically, this is documented, healthy churches grow a cumulative 5% every year. If you are a healthy church, you're going to lose some people. Unfortunately, some people pass away, right? Some people move away. So with that plus minus, healthy churches tend to grow 5% every year. Metro has been averaging in the 40% growth range for the last 3 years. It is a remarkable thing that is happening right now here at our church. And I don't know if you know that, but we have strong momentum even into this year. We grew about 120 people last year. And that's crazy because we're actually sitting in that same pace this year as well. Every ripple, every fellowship, every ripple in the Metro pond, whether you're starting from children's church all the way into college group and all of our fellowships, they're all centered around gospel renewal, gospel transformation, and gospel mission. This summer, we're about to launch a youth group. That's another ripple in the pond. A youth group, a youth community group. We're also going to be launching a men's fellowship as well. The net of it is there are many opportunities to plug into the church. If you want to get into the life of the church and you are new or visiting or kind of trying to figure out how, right, plug into a fellowship. They meet every 2 or 3 months. Plug into a community group. Visit a community group. 94,000, we talk about that every week. Text the word Metro to 94,000 to tell us you want to at least inquire about what it means to start the journey, okay? 45% growth. I mean, that is an amazing thing. I want to thank everybody here who's been just enduring. We have second-rate facilities. We have second-rate equipment. But I tell you, we are rich and wealthy in resources with our people. Our people, our leaders, their gospel heart, just their desire to serve the Lord, their love for Jesus, and keeping that as the priority, and then their love for God's people. That's an amazing thing. I want to show you the kind of impact that this has, because when we talk about growth, we oftentimes think about what we see in person, but it goes beyond that. I want to share a little bit about what the Lord is doing just virtually as well.
Hi, my name is Christina, representing the communications team, and I'm here to share about our virtual community, which has seen some amazing and impactful growth. So I'll be focusing today on our YouTube and Meta channels, and by Meta, I mean Facebook and Instagram. And through these numbers, I just hope to share with you the sheer power of our online presence in a post-pandemic world. So last year in 2022, we had about 17,000 total unique live views, which is a 31% increase year over year, and about 19,000 unique total views if you're including those tuning in, not just live. And those numbers have only increased year over year. And so that means that there are more people engaging with us online today than at the peak of the pandemic when online was all we had. We launched our YouTube channel in March 2020 in response to COVID. And since then, at the end of 2020, we had 87 subscribers. A whole year later, we doubled that with 160 subscribers. And that was during a year where people were coming back to worship in person. And as of today, we have over 250 subscribers. And so as you can see, people are still tuning in virtually, and our virtual community is continuing to grow and very healthy. Even more so in Meta, which is measured by unique accounts reached opposed to views. We had last year's total reach of 15,000, which was a 41% increase, which is a lot. But I think even what's more noteworthy than that is that this past first quarter of 2023, we well over doubled that. Like, I actually had to do a double take on those numbers because it said we were up almost 500% from the last year's first quarter, but it's true. We got our 500th page like on Facebook as of yesterday. So if that was one of you, you know who you are. And we have well over 500 followers on Instagram. So show you this. And that's just for our East Falls handle. So overall, we've seen the landscape, just in church shift significantly post-COVID. And not only is our virtual platform not going anywhere, but our live streams, our social channels, our online presence has only helped to grow our community and our congregation, and just give our city access to gospel-centered worship, preaching, and community. Some of you are here today because you found us online and are walking examples of that. And in fact, one of our couples, Jack and Allison, they offered to share a little bit about their own online experience. So yeah.
Meet Metro's newest member, Finnegan Slinkman. Finn is 3 days old today, so we're still at the hospital. But we wanted to share a little bit about our story of coming to Metro. So about a year ago, before Metro, we were talking about the context in which we wanted to raise a child in. And so we were planning for Finn, and we actually saw a Facebook post of somebody sharing the Sunday gathering, and we just saw a very vibrant community that we were interested in, a community of believers, but most importantly, a community of people who could teach our child about the love of Christ. And so after that, we went to Metro's website and we started listening to a bunch of sermons at home, and that led us to visiting Metro in person. We joined Roxborough CG shortly after, and we've been a part of that ever since. And we just began to interweave our life with community at Metro, and it really just took one social media post.
So we hope that our story serves as a reminder that posting about church is evangelical in nature. When we share the live stream, we're sharing the message about the gospel, but it's also countercultural. In a digital space where we're more inclined to post about ourselves, where we're more inclined to perform and project, we have the tools to recenter the story and realign it to Christ, placing him at the center. Last week, when celebrating the communications team, Pastor Donnie said that a lot of what they do gets taken for granted. And our story is a testament to the fact that their work deeply matters, and that the ripples of the church, the ripple effect, it has a wide reach. Yeah, thanks.
Jack and Allison, I know you're joining us live, so I just want to say we as a church celebrate the birth of Finnegan, Finn for short, and we can't wait to meet him in person. I honestly still can't believe you offered to, not only willing, but eager to share that while in recovery, so I know you want to be here in person too, so thank you so much, and congrats again. And so yeah, as you can see, many people are either looking for a church or perhaps wary of church or don't even go to church. They actually start off online before they even walk through our doors. And so the best thing that you can do is to like, subscribe, and share. Whether that's resharing our live streams on our personal accounts or reposting on stories, etc. We've literally seen significant impacts to our live streams and channels being reached by your active sharing. It's really no surprise that the videos with the highest number of shares are the ones with the highest reach proportionately. And in this landscape, as Jack just shared, it is a form of sharing the good news of the gospel, literally. And I really just can't stress this enough that, I know that God is doing something special and amazing here. And this is just one small, everyday, or once a week thing that you can do to actively plug into the mission here. I personally was part of a church in New York City for 8 years, and I left that to come here, not only because this is a place that I call home, but because I just so much believe in what God is doing here. And my life's been forever changed just by experiencing the power of the gospel here and then witnessing that year after year, or sometimes week after week. And I just want you to help others taste and see that the Lord is good also. So thank you so much for everyone who's already been doing so, who are actively online, commenting, sharing, even sometimes while you're worshiping in person with us, or continuing to share throughout the week. You know, you really never know who's out there silently suffering, needing an encouragement, or just seeking faith. And a little bit can go such a long, long way. So thank you.
Hi, my name is Melissa Chu. I'm representing Metro's outreach ministry, which seeks to advance and care for our city and really focusing on the welfare of our city. In a time when it's really easy to focus on ourselves and furthering ourselves, being part of outreach ministry has been such a great reminder for me of why we're called to be in the city and for the city. We've seen so many relationships really blossom and within our community, and seen ways that God has really been moving and coming alive in our city when He leads rather than our own selfish ambitions. One of the key initiatives of Metro's outreach team has been our monthly grocery deliveries, and that happens on the last Saturday of every month. In 2023 alone, so this is only May, so not even half of a year, we're seeing over 600 families be served in the East Falls area. We've delivered more than 12,000 pounds of food as a church, which is the equivalent of $24,000 worth of food, which is incredible in just 6 months, or 5 months, it's only May. And since the beginning of our monthly deliveries, that was the beginning of the pandemic of March of 2020, we've seen even more drastic numbers. We've delivered more than 128,000 pounds of food, which is the equivalent of $246,000 worth of food, which, to give you some context, that's about half of Metro's entire annual budget. To think that that is the amount of food that we've been able to serve and deliver to our neighbors. And more than just a physical and financial impact, we've seen relationships form and grow with our neighbors as we get to connect with them regularly. This has been such an amazing area of growth for us this past year, where we've really come to learn what it looks like to really care for our neighbors in a deeper level. And more than just the 600 families, that number is just a number. But we've seen really these numbers become friends, become brothers and sisters, smiles and laughs that we have come to grow to love. And I think that has been such an outflow of this, even this past year, of us learning what it looks like to connect with them deeper. And now as these relationships continue to grow, that's opened up more opportunities for us to continue to meet our neighbors where they're at. So in the next few years, we plan on continuing to grow our partnerships with our neighbors, our local churches, other nonprofit organizations, and city representatives to really seek further advancement in the overall welfare of our city. So the rest of this year, Metro's outreach ministry will continue to host our monthly meal deliveries. We'll also have our annual backpack drive that some of you are aware of, our turkey drive, and we're also hoping to start up some new initiatives like our prayer walks, which just to continue to pray for our city, and also a health fair coming down the pike. So for those of you who are in healthcare, or even if you're not, this would be a great opportunity for us to be able to serve our community in a different way. And so with all that in mind, what does that mean for you? So we're asking that you would consider joining us by just praying with us for the city, for our neighbors, for all the different initiatives going on. Also join us. Come out and deliver meals with us, connect with our neighbors personally, and also give regularly. Giving financially will help to fuel the overall mission here at Metro. So I just thank you so much for you considering joining us on this mission.
Just as a word of note, I mean, why are we sharing with you any of these things? Why are we sharing with you these numbers? It's an obligation for us we are obligated, or at least I feel obligated, to be able to share what's going on, all of our pictures across all the different dimensions. It's important for you to know. It's important for you to know, but we never strut. And so please, with every bit as much as the good news that we see here, please don't let that turn into a strut. You know, we are still incredibly underfunded. We live and work and reside in a second-rate facility. And we are desperately just scrounging around, incredibly frugal, to be able to get little things out the door that will make impact. And so please don't make any mistake. You know, these things look nice, but you know how it is. And so we never strut. God gives us just enough to keep going. All right? Let's remember that. And we rely on that. We're grateful every step of the way. We're grateful for you and your help. Thank you for those who presented earlier. And, you know, one thing about the outreach, we initially said we're going to do one thing a year when we launched. Then we said in time, that's going to grow to about one every season. And it was our hope that we would be able to do one every month. And now we're doing more than that. We're doing one every month, and we got 4 or 5 events. Our goal someday is that all of our plans put together, all of our sites will operate and work so that every day something is happening in the city that's funded and powered by people in our church to serve and to embrace others here in the city by giving practical grace apart from just the message of the gospel that follows. So please join us in that. We're going to talk a little bit about church planning. We believe that the healthiest and best way to advance the gospel in our city is to saturate our regions with gospel preaching, gospel teaching, gospel content, gospel community. Because if we do that in a healthy way, well, who wouldn't want a church in the corner of their neighborhood? If we're serving the city and loving people and just doing that with no strings attached and just blessing people in Christ while preaching the gospel faithfully, and it's got to be the gospel faithfully, who wouldn't want to be partnered and neighbors with churches like that? In a world right now where churches are dying by the week, the average church size in America is 65, but it's declining. You know, the Lord is doing an incredible thing here in our body, in our community. This is a map this is the original map. When we first talked about coming together to become a church plant, this was the map that we drew up. And we wondered where to plant our first site. Well, the Lord led us to East Falls. And just last year, he planted us in Cherry Hill. Cherry Hill is considered one of the most difficult places to sustain a church for the long haul. And yet, a lot is going on right now. And, you know, Pastor Brian's going to come up here and share a little bit about that. But it is really considered a feat to be able to sustain even a year out in Cherry Hill. Where are we going to go next? We don't know yet. We're actually praying about West Philly. We're praying about North Wales. We're praying about South Philly. Oh, I can't wait to start a church in South Philly. I can't wait to start a church in West Philly. I can't wait to start a church in North Wales. I can't wait to have churches and plants all over the Philadelphia area. But right now, we're still praying. We're looking for direction. We don't just kind of have something in mind. It's not just about data. We want to come together and pray. We've committed to at least a year of just praying together as a staff. In the meantime, while we do that, we have to do something here. It's continuing to grow. So what we're going to do is we're going to launch a second service in East Falls. And as always with what we do in our community groups, what we do with separate sites, as we launched off Cherry Hill, we're forming a team to launch this service. And so our target launch date is July 16th. We've resolved that we're going to have 2 services now, one at 9:30 in the morning and one at 11:30 in the morning. 9:30 and 11:30 beginning July 16th. That's our target date for launch. You're going to hear a lot more about this as we come along and as we discuss and figure out which service you're going to go to. We're hoping for about 75 people within this community right now that will join that launch at 9:30 and stay with us for at least 1 year. That's what we're praying for. Right now, just based on the surveys that we've collected and seen, about half that number is already there. We're about halfway there. Half the people said 9:30 is my jam. That's what I'm going to do, right? But what we want to do is tap some of you on the shoulder. We're going to look at who we've got and try to build a right team, a team of people who are missional, people who are engaged with others, and have a good mix of people who are just bought into our mission and understand our values and how intensely focused we are on those things. We want to tap you on the shoulder, and if we do, we're going to ask you to just prayerfully consider that missional call to partner with us to launch this separate service. Now, why would we do that? Because it's going to allow us to have greater flexibility. Every person who comes over to the 9:30 service allows one new seat for somebody, a new person, to come to the 11:30 and join in and possibly hear the gospel for the first time. Do you know that 80% of our church consists of people who had walked away from the church at least 3 or 4 years? And actually, the amount of years has actually grown. So to have somebody actually come into the church for the first time after half a decade, and to sit and be a part of a worship service, and to be able to engage with other believers and say, you know what, this is different than what I grew up with. This is different. I sense the Lord calling me here. That's an amazing thing, especially in an age right now that's hostile to what we believe. We're asking you to partner with us missionally to engage in that with us. And so if you desire to join the 9:30 service, we're going to send another survey out shortly. We're going to give you an opportunity to opt in. We're going to form a team. We're just going to prayerfully walk through it over the next several months before we launch on July 16th. We're excited about this. We think it's going to be really powerful for, especially we have to do something with the space that we have until we're able to figure out what we're going to do for the long haul. So please be in prayer for us about that as well.
All right, well, my name is Brian. I am the pastor that currently oversees our Cherry Hill site. We launched on June 19th, so it's almost been a year, and it's been an amazing experience so far. We wanted to plant this site specifically for just the renewal of this Cherry Hill community. You know, it's funny when you think about Cherry Hill, people in many ways don't have the highest view of this area, but what we saw was an opportunity to really see the gospel being reached because of the beauty of the gospel and the beauty of its people and the beauty of this community. So it was through years of prayer that we wanted to really see how God was going to unfold in this possible vision of planting a new site in Cherry Hill. And it's by God's grace we really did see this unfold. We've seen new faces on a weekly basis. We've seen multiple infant baptisms. We've heard story after story about people experiencing deep spiritual renewal through the gospel. And that's exactly what we said we wanted to do. We wanted to be a distinct light unto this community. And we said we're going to do two things. We said we're going to preach the gospel, and we are going to demonstrate it. So what we began to do is we mobilized a core team of 22 adults that started solely from our East Falls site right here. And what we did was we gathered, we prayed, and when we focused on connecting with everyone that we connected with. And I really do believe it was the warmth and the care of this group on a weekly basis that really helped us grow to where we are right now. So what we're seeing at this point, as of today, we're now averaging about 67 adults. We've already seen weeks where we've reached over 80 people, the 80-person mark. And if you look at here, even going from 2022 to 2023, we've already seen a 10% increase. Now, to put that in perspective, why I think that's so important is that Metro East Falls, when it first started, it didn't see 10% growth until 3 years in. So what we're really seeing is God is really moving in our Cherry Hill community. So just to highlight a few things here in terms of God's grace and how we've been growing. Overall, since we first started on June 19th, there has been a 30% growth with our adult congregation. Secondly, what we see is that our Crossroads Children's Ministry, thank you to the team and all the volunteers who serve on the Crossroads Fellowship. We have seen tremendous growth within our children, 59%. So what we're seeing is kind of reaching to the demographics of young parents that are coming into this community. So we're seeing just a grace in how people in that life stage are being impacted by the gospel. And the third number I want to highlight, something actually really cool, is there's that 44% decrease in East Falls volunteers. You know, when we first started in mid-June, we would have a team of folk from East Falls just right after service and just week after week crossing that bridge because we needed the manpower. And now at this point, there's a 44% decrease. And that number is so exciting for me personally as a pastor there because what I'm seeing is that there's an ownership from the body. We see people, they want to plug in. They don't want to just be spectators, but they want to be part of something very, very special. And if you haven't been there yet, guys, Metro Cherry Hill has been something very, very special. I've been pastoring in different contexts for various years now, and I can honestly and confidently say I've never experienced such joy throughout this entire thing, both personally and ministerially. And I'm not saying it's easy. Trust me, you want to grab coffee with me? I could tell you how difficult it actually is. But what I can tell you, it definitely is so worth it. There are people that are on board for sake of gospel mission, and there are people that want to be partaking in that, people that are with me in the journey. And on that note, I actually just want to briefly acknowledge my pastor, my coach, my brother, my friend, Donnie. Planting is filled with extreme highs and extreme lows. So I just want to say thank you, brother, for your care for me, your counsel, your encouragement during this very special season. And it has been a very special season. So continue to pray for us, join us in mission in this very special season. And I actually want to show a video from our dear sister, Thea, who's part of our Cherry Hill site, to talk about how special it really is.
Hi, my name is Thea, and I have been attending Metro since the summer of 2021. I, at that time, was looking for a church, and my friend had pointed me to Metro. The messages that are being preached every Sunday have really helped me grow in my faith. I love that every message always points back to the gospel, to be reminded of how deeply loved we are by the Father, that He made a way to redeem us through Jesus, and the beautiful exchange that happened on the cross. There is also a very warm community here in Cherry Hill who cares for my well-being by checking in on me regularly, praying for me. And I am also very grateful for community groups where people can just have the space to grow in their faith, to listen and to be heard, to pray for one another, and just to do life together.
All right, everyone's favorite topic, finance. I have the privilege of serving on our finance team under our executive pastor, Tim Shin. And, in all seriousness, this is probably, I think, my fourth or fifth time just being able to present about our finances during Vision Sunday. One thing I just really want to express gratitude and thankfulness for to our congregation is just the fact that based on personal experience, based on just what I've seen of other churches that many of us have kind of grown up with and can relate to, finances can so easily become such a divisive, controversial, and really kind of the death knell of a lot of churches. I'm really grateful for the fact that even though there's some hard conversations that have been had over the years with regards to finances, that, I don't know if it's because of our core values and kind of the oneness to those values that we're striving for that Donnie had mentioned earlier. But I've been blessed to just, be a part of a congregation, I think, that really embraces what they're hearing and really is trying to respond to that. So thank you for being a part of that, especially for those who have been around for a while. I want to start off real quick. I'm going to go through these as quickly as I can by taking a look at our expenses. So these are all the ways that we spent money last year during 2022. I'll just kind of quickly go through the categories. Compensation is really just talking about just the total compensation package for our staff. So that includes 5 pastors, 1 resident intern, And this also includes, that number might look big at first glance when you look at that 432,000, but also keep in mind that's not just straight salary. There's also a lot of cost if you've ever been involved in benefit planning and things like that for employee benefits, for retirement plans. All those things kind of make up that compensation expense. And that's something that we're really looking to roll out, actually, for all of our pastors. We're still part-time for a lot of the people who are on staff, and we want to make sure that we're really rolling out those benefits to the fullest to our entire staff. Our facilities, without a doubt, just sheerly by the fact that we are a church in the city, committing to really being in the city and serving in the city, that's expensive. It's not cheap to rent a facility in the city. And obviously now we have the Cherry Hill site as well that we are also paying for, and all the different costs that are related to maintenance and renovation and upkeep, and also equipment and things like that that goes into just keeping the facility running. From an admin and ops standpoint, obviously stuff has to happen just for the church to run on a weekly basis. So this line item really covers everything that kind of happens behind the scenes for worship to kind of work properly, for all the back-end stuff to work, for all the systems that we have to be in place. Not my favorite way to spend money, candidly, but just a necessary expenditure for any type of organization, especially one of our size that continues to grow. Outreach and support is really where we are, this is where we're really investing our money in the communities around us, in our ministry partners, just in church planning efforts, really just wanting to be devoted to, living out our values, just as we ask, our congregation every week to really put your money where your mouth is, in a sense, and where your heart is, just as a response to faith. We as a church also want to do very similarly in putting our money, not just for the sake of our own growth and our own advancement, but really investing in the communities around us, our partners, and making sure that we are, as Donnie mentioned earlier, really a part of a bigger movement. It's not just about Metro. We're just one piece in what the Lord is doing in the advance of his kingdom. Congregational life, that's really just everything that's happening with just different events that happen throughout the course of the year within our church. Our fellowships, we have a variety of fellowships, our children's fellowship, our women's fellowship, our college fellowship. So these are all the costs that kind of go into making sure that we have a robust congregational life. And then finally, ministry and training. This is probably the cheapest, because in a lot of ways, training doesn't require too much money, right? That can be done fairly cheaply. But at the same time, we do want to make sure that we're devoting money to really empowering the people who come into our church and are really desiring to plug into God's mission. And so we want to make sure that we are equipping people properly so that they can go out and be a part of this gospel movement that Metro is part of. So one quick note here before we move on. I just want to note, especially if you haven't been here for a while, historically speaking, our pastors actually, for the vast majority of Metro's existence, have actually been either underpaid, severely underpaid, or completely unpaid. So, as we just continue to move forward, we want to make sure that we are really doing right by our pastors. I think that, we really haven't been meeting that call for the majority of our lifespan as a church. And I want to make sure that, the pastors are never going to say this, but, me, myself, as kind of, the finance lead here, I want to make sure that we are really prioritizing taking care of our pastors in the ways in which they're shepherding us, and we can just respond likewise to be able to take care of them financially. So at the very least, that's one less thing that they need to worry about. So just some historical context there. On the flip side, I also want to take a look at the giving at our church. So giving is the main source of income at our church. Obviously, there are other ways that we make money. Sometimes we charge fees for different events, for classes, there's special types of giving sometimes, but for the most part, these first 4 line items are all what we call general giving, which is really just, when you tithe, when you give, and there's no real restriction or condition tied to the giving. So that first line of combined giving, that represents all the giving that happened pre-June 19th, which is when we formally kicked off services in Cherry Hill last year. And so as a total combined congregation, the total giving amount was $228,000 pre-June 19th. The next two lines, East Falls and Cherry Hill, are the breakouts respectively post June 19th. So you kind of see for the second half of the year, as we broke apart into two congregations, how that giving kind of broke down per site. And then we also have a visitors and online line item as well. So that's for folks who aren't ready to call themselves a part of our church, if they're just checking us out online, but for whatever reason felt compelled to give and support our mission, or if they consider themselves to be a part of our online congregation. That's what that line item represents. And then the last one there is our growth campaign. Now, I just want to take a moment here and really celebrate the fact that, I believe the total that was raised, I tried to remember this figure, $23,899.24 to the penny, right? I am so thankful. Thank you so much. I know that this was a huge effort that we went through, really to go through and come together as a church through our community groups, really for the sake of kind of going through this really, it can be a very uncomfortable process of actually going and connecting with our kind of local networks, our spheres of influence to really fundraise for the sake of, what we wanted to do to kind of renovate and really redo a lot of our building here in East Falls so that we can better do ministry, better equip our leaders, and kind of set that foundation for being able to do ministry in the future as well. None of that money has been spent yet. Our leadership, our pastors are still in the midst of trying to figure out exactly how we want to spend that money, but rest assured it is going to go into what we promised and what we set out, and we'll continue to report out on that over the coming months. I want to focus real quick, our general giving. So if you take out the growth campaign and you just look at the money that came in from general giving and tithing last year, that comes out to just over $500,000, which at first glance sounds like a ton of money, right? Especially for a church. But I want to kind of peel a layer back real quick and take a look just in a couple of different ways at slicing the data, so you can see that there's a bit of a different story than what you might see at first glance. This first number in the bottom left here is what represents the top 5% giving number out of all of our general givers and tithers in 2022. So what that means is that there were roughly about 300 plus unique people who gave in 2022. And so the top 5% of that will be 16 people. So if you look at only the top 16 people who gave in 2022, between those 16 people only, they gave a collective amount of $246,000, which is almost half of that entire 2022 general giving figure. So that means that the remaining 95%, the remaining 250 plus people combined for almost, just over what those 16 people gave. So you can see here that the numbers are skewed a little bit. It's very heavily weighted to a small group of people. Another way that I want to kind of examine these numbers, this first figure that you see here on the left, we got this number from an organization called Church Salary. They do a lot of research and studies just nationally on different rates of giving and things like that in America. And they found that in the year 2022, a survey of almost 3,000 churches, so this is a pretty comprehensive survey, they found that the average per person giving nationally was just under $3,000, $2,848 per person. This includes children, this includes college students, so just any body that's at a church. They're just breaking it down by the total amount per person. And that's per year. So that's saying that, for every person that attends a given church in America, on average, they're giving about $2,848 per year. Now, if you contrast that to the metro numbers, so the middle number and the right number are the numbers that are tailored to our church. So the middle number is our per person giving last year in 2022. And you'll see that it's actually below this national average, which is interesting because I would consider our congregation probably to be one that's probably a bit more affluent overall compared to kind of the national average of churches. And the other thing to consider here is that our numbers actually exclude people who we assumed would not be actively giving in this season. So that's going to be children. I don't think any of our children are out there making money. I hope not. And also our students. We assume that you all are full-time devoted to your studies. And so this is only looking at working adults, or our best estimate of working adults. So the reality is that if you really make it apples to apples to this first number, and you add in the kids, you add in the students, those numbers are actually going to be much lower than what you see there. And so, this is kind of apples to oranges. And not only that, but from 22 to 23, I think you heard Donnie kind of speaking about just our tremendous growth. And, we're super thankful for that. And yet, the interesting thing is that as we continue to grow, our per-person giving is actually falling, right? You'll see that it goes down by about $400. This is a projected number, obviously, because we're only really in Q2 right now. So this is based on our Q1 figures, and really projecting out what that would look like if that continues through the rest of the year. But kind of heading in a negative direction there with regards to our per-person giving compared to the previous year. One final view here. This is the same exact kind of numbers that we're looking at, but the second and third figures, the metro figures, have been adjusted to exclude those top 16 givers that we talked about from last year. So if you just take those 16 people out of the picture, all of a sudden our PPG goes down by over $1,000 for both 22 and 23. And so I think this slide just really demonstrates kind of the precarious situation we find ourselves in. I mean, we are super thankful for the fact that we have such generous people just in pockets of our congregation. But at the end of the day, that is not something that we believe is sustainable, especially as we want to continue to grow and advance what we believe is the mission that we've been called to. And so, I think this slide really just illustrates the fact that, especially this year, what we're projecting is that we're actually coming in at a per-person giving rate that's less than half of the national average, many of which churches are actually in much less affluent areas than we are in. And so I think this is a really helpful slide just to understand the true nature of where our giving currently is today. So what do we do about it? I pulled together just this view to kind of show if you were to increase on this left column your weekly giving by X amount of dollars, right? So for this, say $50, if you were to just say, you know what, I'm going to set aside $50 per week, I want to increase my giving in that way. If you were to do that for a whole year, that would come out to $2,600 total that you would be contributing through the course of a year through that increase. But because of the fact that we've been growing so much as a congregation, this is an amazing thing. That number is just exponentially multiplied when you look at the aggregate impact. If everyone in our congregation were to wake up tomorrow and say, you know what, I'm going to start to tithe $50 more. I'm going to start to give $50 more to church every week. That means that the total impact there would almost double our working budget from 22 and result in a $500K bump to our finances, which is an amazing thing. Honestly, I know that right now it's a difficult economy, right? We want to be real about what's going on. Circumstances are tough out there. Money is tight. So with that in mind, please understand that we would never ask you to give irresponsibly. We would never ask you to give beyond your means. So we ask that any kind of giving obviously is prayerful and done just with a lot of reflection and wisdom. But that being said, we believe that, what an opportunity to respond to the good news of the gospel in a way where we can practice and demonstrate radical conservatism in the ways in which we kind of buckle down and scale down on ways that we spend in such, self-centered or self-indulgent ways. And really, actually, that would allow us to be radically generous in really joining in the mission of God and being a part of what, all these amazing stories that you've heard. It's a wonderful thing to be here. And I just want to encourage you to consider just taking part in that through sacrificial giving. And I think you can just see the practical impact of that on this slide. My last thing here before I stop, and this is not to guilt trip anyone. I'm not going to read this passage, but this is a passage from 1 Timothy 5, and essentially, what the Apostle Paul is saying in this passage is that he is actually going as far as to say that, hey, if you are a church and you are not financially taking care of your pastors who are shepherding your flock, he goes as far as to say that you're actually in sin as a church, as a body, right? Just let that sink in for a minute. And for us, who, I think we would agree that we've just been so immeasurably blessed, both as individuals, as a congregation in the city. just for the sake of our pastors, man, I can tell you this from firsthand experience, being here since the beginning of this church plant, we are blessed to have the pastors that we have. I mean, we are incredibly blessed to have men who just love Jesus, who desire and just surround themselves with so many different layers of accountability. They're not perfect men, but they are really just committed to shepherding, to loving, to pouring themselves out. Even when they weren't getting paid anything at all, they were actually putting their own money into the advancement of ministry at our church. And I think that's a picture that a lot of us just don't see on an everyday basis. And so, not even just for our pastors, if you're someone who's really experiencing new life here, if you're someone who's kind of come in and you've really been someone who's been moved and brought to new life through the gospel, I just want to invite you to consider joining with us in sacrificial giving. There's nothing like just the counterintuitive nature of sacrificial giving that really, in a super odd way, really just brings you face to face with just your need for the gospel and just deepens your love for Jesus in just immeasurable ways. And so, just please keep these things in mind, and just I want to thank you for your continued partnership with us financially as well.
As we close out the presentation portion of this service, I just want to call us all to just reassess and reconsider. We're not going to be able to do this without you. And you are every bit the resource as an individual. But the Lord asks for not just our gifts, but it's who we are and everything we are, our pursuits. We need to surrender and submit these things. One thing's for sure is that Israel in the Old Testament never did well in times of prosperity. If you read all those prophecies, the prophetic books right in the middle of the Bible in the Old Testament, Israel never did well in times of prosperity. Our pride, our arrogance, and what we preached here in Haggai, we just abandon God. We always keep him at a distance when things go well. You see, what an opportunity for us to come together and re-engage. And so we just ask that you would, and we do that gratefully because many of you have sacrificed a lot and you've given a lot and you're doing a lot. And so we ask for that. Hey, we're partnering there with you. We're right there with you. With some time left over, as we kind of close out, I just wanted to, I don't know how many more times we're going to be able to do this, but what I'm going to do is just open up the mic for others who may be able to just share a little bit, just a few words. We used to do this traditionally every year. We're probably just going to create a service where we can just do this because it's important for us to hear. I wanted to give an opportunity to people who've just been moved in the past year by Metro and the work that we're doing in the city here. Your lives being renewed, the lives of others around you being renewed. If you have an opportunity, just share brief words. I'm going to ask you to be concise, to just come up to our open mic and just share who you are and what you're thankful for this year with respect to the life of our body and you plugging into it. Please don't spend a tremendous amount of time. We ask you to be concise, and to express and share your gratitude, to encourage the body, and share those words with us. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Lily. I'm a student at Jefferson and I've been coming to Metro for about 2 years now. When I think about what Metro means to me, it really is just a home, and it's hard for me because my family lives far away, but Metro has become a home and Philadelphia has become a home because of the people here and just the way that they have reached out to me, empowered me, and have been intentionally loving to me, has made it easy for me to see the love of Christ and how he's working in my life and just in the Crosswalk Fellowship with other students. So I want to say thank you for just being my family and giving me a place to grow, and praise God for all that he's doing here and the relationships that are being built here. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Han. I attended this church for about a year before finally making it here in person. It's been a very long road since living a very different life far from Christ for years. And I forgot the fuel, the fire, the burning motivation to come to him. And after spending some time and going through the hardships of COVID, when I lost my job, my health was in shambles, I didn't know where I was going to go or live. And during my time of healing, I started coming out to Metro. I met very important people to me. And as I got plugged in, I just want to thank the Metro community and everyone here, because it has allowed me to come back to Christ, to fulfill myself in health, in family, with my friends. And at the end of the day, I think there's a lot of people out there, just like me, who have come to Christ virtually at first, and then physically here, and have started to begin a new life where all the things that I lost in the past, it has grown twofold or somewhere in that magnitude, and the blessings, it seems like it's a dream. And I just want to encourage the people out there that aren't quite there yet or on their journey, because it took a long time for me to come to where I am today. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name's Peter. I also started here probably like 3 years ago, but I'm kind of like different. I was always in the church, so like the people before me. I also kind of like lost my hope, and because I'm always like attending church ritualistically, and I'm like, is there something I'm missing here? So I'm just so thankful for all the people here that's kind of like kept me accountable, and just walk with me like graciously. So yeah, thank you.
Hi everyone. Oh my gosh, this is so loud. Sorry. My name is Lavelle. I'm from Drexel University, and I just come from like a background, I guess, without much of a community, like in church. So just being able to come here and kind of find a family here, I think I'm really like happy to be a part of Metro, and just really touched to be a part of a community who really just like strives to like serve the Lord and really shows so much welcoming spirit. So yeah, I'm really just happy to be a part of it, and it's like a home to me now. So yeah, thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm June. I'm currently 24, and I think the one thing if I had to say, or I could say about Metro was, I grew up as a Christian all my life and learning about God and the Bible, but coming to Metro is where I got to truly experience God's love through His people here, and that's just the one thing I've been really grateful for, just experiencing God's love through the community and just feeling like I can grow with other people and like-minded people.
due to just our time limitation, just gonna keep it open just for a few more folks before we close out of our worship time. So if a few more folks are interested in coming out and sharing, you're welcome to come right now.
Hello, my name is Andrew Yee, and I'm from Temple University. And I recently started attending this church in the fall, and it's truly been a blessing to see everybody be so close, so willing, and so open to come out. And I really appreciate you guys for being here every day or every Sunday. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Kayla. I go to Temple. And I guess the thing I really just appreciate about this place is that even though I was like born and raised in the church, I didn't really feel like I had a connection to God. Like I almost was like going there just to like say and look like a Christian, like for my family. And I think that led to me like almost like falling out with my relationship with God for a while. But ever since I've started coming here, I feel like I've really been like starting to actually understand the word and like really feel like so just enjoyed by a community like so quickly and just like so welcomed. And I'm actually starting to understand my relationship with God now. And like I'm doing it for myself and making my Christianity my own. And I really appreciate this place for that.
Hey everyone, I'm Jonathan. I'm currently a dental student at Penn. I just want to thank everyone, thank Metro for giving me and Adzira a community. We started coming out in fall of 2021, and I'd say within the past 8 months, within the past year, our lives have really changed. A few weeks ago, you were able to hear Adzira's testimony, and I'm so grateful for everything that Metro has given us and for allowing us to experience great fellowship and to experience God's grace. Thank you.
Okay. I think, I don't know why I'm walking up to the mic. I forgot I was mic'd. I'm like, keep walking up to the mic. I'm like, oh, they can hear me. Thank you so much. It's a powerful thing to know that people's lives, I know that their open mics tend to be a little stressful. They're unplanned. I know that there are others who would want to share, and yet kind of trying to consider and reconsider, and you kind of second guess yourself. But the reality is the Lord is doing a lot, and you're just seeing a snapshot of the brave ones who are able to come up and share that. But we see God's moving and power in our community groups. We see it in our worship. We see it in the life of our outreach and what's going on there. We're seeing it in the ways that we're branching off into new sites and new churches. We're hoping that in the next 3 years that we'll be gathering folks to be able to launch maybe 3 or 4 churches at one shot, after 2 or 3 years, a residency program. These are all things that require power and funding, and so we're trying to be frugal, we're trying to be careful in how we spend, and we just ask that you continue to partner with us. One has come. Are there any others? We ask that you just partner with us and join us. Thank you for being a part of everything that we have been doing here. Without you, and because we are a body, I am one part, our pastors are one part. Without you, the body doesn't happen. And so As we've preached, may the Lord continue to breathe into dry bones and bring new life. And also, may we heed the call, as we've seen in Haggai, to look at our paneled homes and what we're building and move towards the mission and the transforming power of God's work. We see that in Jesus, who gives us new life. It's my prayer that as much as you've come to new life in Jesus, now you will come into the body of Jesus and to grow in the body of Jesus. Let's continue to do that as we just close out and in prayer, and we'll close out with one song. Thank you.